Ruby.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Script, a podcast from iHeartRadio and CVS where we answer your real health questions with help from CVS pharmacists who hear them every day. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Goodman, a board-certified psychiatrist and health educator, and today we are digging into cold and flu season, a time when symptoms overlap, misinformation spreads fast, and it's hard to know when something is minor or when it calls for more attention. With cases rising, understanding what's going around can make a big difference in keeping you and your family healthy. To break all of this down, I'm joined by Gurang Travetti, a CVS Pharmacy Region Director from North Carolina. Let's get into it. So let me ask you some questions to get to know you a little bit. Where are you calling in from today? And paint us a picture of your CVS store and neighborhood.
I am calling in from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I get a chance to lead a team of 140 pharmacists here in the state of North Carolina, the northern side of North Carolina.
So what do you love about being a pharmacist? Why pharmacy?
Yes, Jake, one of the most exciting pieces about being a pharmacist is, we are the most trusted healthcare profession out there. Number two, we are the most accessible healthcare profession out there. And just the ability to serve patients, talk to folks in the community around disease states that they can prevent, or if they already have a disease, how we can help them get better. That really drives me each and every day.
I love that. Off camera before we started, you told me that you'd been doing this for 17 years. So what's the one thing about your day-to-day over the last 17 years that might surprise people?
I think the one constant that I have is that 2 days are not the same. Every day I wake up and I may have a plan or I may have an agenda, but it does change because, we are working with true people out there. We're working in the community. We're working with patients. We're working with people. And no 2 days are the same. They present with different challenges, different situations that we have to overcome. But that truly drives me, being able to tackle that and embrace that challenge every day.
Right now, we're in the season of coughs. I walk to the store, I take a walk around, I hear people coughing all the time. And when it comes to coughs and colds, what sort of things are people asking when they come up to the counter for help?
This is one area where it's very specific to the patient, right? And what our pharmacists do is they really have a few additional follow-up questions to really help the patients, right? So some of the follow-up questions may include, how long have you had this cough? Do you have a dry cough, or is there some production related to it? If there's production related to it, what color is the production? And all this really help the pharmacist or the clinician make a determination is this something that we just want to wait it out, or do we need more medical care? But they are over-the-counter medications that are available, and again, it's very specific on the patient and other disease states that they may have. For instance, if someone's got high blood pressure, they may not be able to take some medications.
Mm-hmm. I had a flashback of med school asking the color of the sputum. As a psychiatrist, I am blessed to not have to inquire about color of sputum these days. But thank you for that flashback. I really appreciate that. So if you're offering over-the-counter items, do people still need to let you know and come up to the pharmacy counter and say, hey, I'm on other medications?
That is one thing we always encourage all our pharmacists to do. And we really slow down and spend the time with the patient to understand not just what they're treating today for this one visit, but what else are they dealing with? Because, there's some instances they may have other comorbidities or other disease states, and taking an over-the-counter medication would actually make the whole picture worse. So getting that history is very important, and it's very, very patient-specific.
What are some of the over-the-counter options that people use for coughs, for example?
I think a big piece as we think about what they need to use, again, it's just based on what they're presenting themselves with. Do they have a dry cough? Do they have some production? One of the pieces that I always counsel my patients is always try using a single ingredient over-the-counter medication. And that way you're just specifically treating what you have going on, right? So if you need if you're just coughing and you need a cough suppressant, look for an active ingredient that just has one active ingredient compared to 3, 4, or 5. So that's one of the rule of thumbs that I use when I'm counseling my patients.
Got it. Okay. Let's switch it up a little bit and talk about vaccines and timing of vaccines. We know that there's no vaccine for the common cold, but vaccines can reduce your risk of diseases like the flu, right?
Yes. In my personal opinion, the greatest public health achievements we've had is vaccinations, specifically around, the flu, where, you can prevent it year over year. It's safe and it's effective.
And, one of the most asked questions that we received was when should people ideally be getting the flu vaccine? And in addition, do we really need to get it every year?
Funny that you mentioned that, Jay, because that is another very common question that comes up over and over. So let's break it down a little bit and talk about the entire flu season. And in terms of the months, right? So we see the flu season goes all the way through April. So our general recommendation is getting your flu shot sometime September timeframe, right? And what you need to do, it's an annual vaccine. Now, the second question that does come up, do I have to take it every year? And, it's funny, every time we're in the pharmacy and it's September, we ask that question, hey, have you received your flu shot this season? And you've got those folks who said, yes, I received it. And when you ask them, hey, when did you get it? They have to slow down and think about, well, it was Thanksgiving. And we have to remind them, hey, that was last year. You need to get another one for this year as well.
I think something that is important to touch on is that the flu can be very dangerous. It can even lead to death in some scenarios. And there are higher risk groups for the flu.
So here's a number I'm going to throw out there. We have 12,000 individuals who are turning 65 years every day. So that one age group, 65 and over, call them the high risk or the most vulnerable. The second group is, like you mentioned, children who are 2 years or less. And then the third group is anyone who has other conditions, right? So I always think about someone who's got asthma or breathing issues, any heart conditions, cancer. These three groups are the ones that really, really need to get vaccinated ahead of time to make sure that they stay protected.
Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of information and misinformation online, on social media and other places around vaccines. And one sort of theory or thought that I see from time to time is that, well, I got the vaccine and I still got the flu, so the vaccine doesn't work, right? And I see that all over the place. And I understand why people would think that. What I think is really important, and maybe you can touch on this, is, well, perhaps they did get the flu, even though they got the vaccine, but the severity of the flu was much less than it would have been if they didn't get the vaccine. What are your thoughts on that?
Jake, you said it really well. That is such a key component of why one needs to get vaccinated and the big benefits of it. I'm actually going to do this social experiment one of these days. I'm going to create a jar. And every time someone tells me they got the flu because they got the flu vaccine, I'm going to put in $1. And I want to see how quickly I can fill up that jar, because that is one of the biggest myths, right? That does not happen. The second piece kind of go back to our loved ones, the really younger ones. A lot of us live with seniors or we interact with seniors. When we're protected against the flu, we're really protecting them as well, because we are not carriers anymore. So I think that's a big piece, just to protect our loved ones. And then last but not least, as we think about our communities, the more people that get vaccinated, the less they get sick, the less contagious we are. So we are protecting the entire community.
How has your role evolved over the past few years when it comes to immunizations and community health?
One of the big changes, one of the biggest impacts we've made is preventative care, specifically through vaccinations. And not just pharmacies, a lot of states also allow our registered technicians to provide immunizations. And both of these groups, pharmacists and technicians, they go through training, they go through certification so they can touch many more people and protect them. Now you layer that to access, right? And, for the most part, a lot of us live within 10 miles of a local community pharmacy. And being able to walk into a pharmacy, talk to your pharmacist, get a vaccine right there and then, that's big, right? Because I compare that to taking my kids to the pediatrician. And I got to make an appointment. I have to show up a certain time. There's a little bit of a wait, right? So I think we've made that really easy in terms of just the access. And of course, a lot of our community pharmacists have really flexible hours of operation during the week, during the weekend as well.
You're on the front lines. People are coming to you all the time, asking you questions about vaccines. Could you share a little bit about some of the most common questions that you hear from people and your responses?
Yes, one of the biggest questions people do ask is, what are the side effects? And, for the most part, majority of the individuals who are getting a vaccine, they're going to get some sort of like inflammation or pain at the site of infection, but that is very, very short-lived. So I think that's a big piece of education, for our patients. Now, the second question that you asked, I think this is key that, we drive awareness. Individuals can get multiple vaccinations on the same visit. And this is something that is extremely encouraged. When you think about an average adult, they're extremely busy. They have multiple appointments and other commitments. And, one of the things that we can serve our patients the best way is keeping them up to speed with their vaccine schedules. Specifically, if they come in on a particular visit, and I'll just use an example of the stat that I shared. If someone turns 65, right, very likely at that age 65, now you're eligible for a few vaccines that you need to get. So, you could come in and get your flu shot. If you're eligible for your COVID vaccine, you could get that as well, and maybe tag in your pneumonia shot. And you can get all three vaccines at the same time on the same visit. And as a matter of fact, 3 weeks ago, my dad went, he lives in Texas, and he went in and he got 2 shots, both in one arm. And I think it made sense for him because there was a chance that if he didn't get both of them, he probably would have skipped it because life does get busy.
My parents just got both vaccines as well. And, they came over to see my baby for the first time. It's really important that everyone is protected. So I appreciate you sharing that. So what if someone comes to you and they say, Gurang, I'm not going to get the vaccine. I'm going to just get the flu because natural immunity is better than vaccine immunity.
We're living in a landscape right now where there's a lot of misinformation out there around vaccines and their effectiveness and what they may or may not cause. One of the biggest piece that I do is it's just education piece, right? And vaccines are safe, vaccines are effective, and they help protect individuals against harmful diseases by using their own body's defenses to build resistance across the specific infections.
Okay, so we know vaccine hesitation is very real. Now more than ever, we're seeing it everywhere. Some people are unsure, they're overwhelmed. People listening right now might not know who to believe. They have heard conflicting things. When you're talking to someone who's on the fence, they came into CVS, they're talking to you. How do you approach that conversation in a way that feels honest, patient, and reassuring?
Jake, that's one of the pieces that we really focused on educating our technicians and pharmacists, because that question comes up over and over again. And I think to me the biggest piece is listening to a patient, right? Like when you slow down and ask them their concern and ask that second question, ask the third question, that's when you really get to understand why they're hesitant. And sometimes we're very surprised. They may tell you, I got a flu vaccine 3 years ago and then I got the flu, and there you go. So that's they open the door for you to help educate them that they did not get the flu because of the flu vaccine. In some other instances, they may share the fear of needles. Like that is a real thing. A lot of people are afraid of getting injected. So, there are a lot of techniques that we can use to make sure that people feel comfortable when they come in. The third piece is just some people are not sure what vaccines they need. So again, our pharmacists do a really nice job of looking at someone's age, looking at their disease states, and really helping them understand these are the different vaccinations that you need to get based on your age, and then more important, helping them understand why they need them, right? And a good example that I share all the time is the pneumonia vaccine. So This is one that we don't think of it on a regular basis. But again, pneumonia is it's very, very rampant out there. It's a respiratory infection. And I just think about last year, my parents were traveling overseas. And, as usual, they packed their bags and they got on a flight. And right before the flight, my mom said, "Hey, I have a lower back pain." We didn't think much of it. We were like, "Hey, maybe she carried a heavy bag or whatnot." And during the flight, this was a 12-hour flight, her condition got worse. And from the airport, she had to be rushed straight to the hospital. And she was actually admitted for 3 days. Turned out she had a UTI that we didn't catch early enough while she was here, and it got worse, right? So they were able to treat the UTI using antibiotics, but while in the hospital, she acquired low-grade pneumonia as well. And after a week, she was discharged, and it took her another week to recover. But I just flipped the script here, and if she would have not got that pneumonia shot, right, when she was eligible, she would have gone in with a UTI infection and probably not made it out. So I think just sharing, the whys as to why someone needs to get a vaccine, I think is so critical. And once people understand that, then, they're more in a place of like seeing why it's important for them and how it would benefit them as well.
I love that approach. So with all these interactions that you have with people on a daily basis, you must have some positive stories from past cold and flu seasons or other interactions at the counter when a simple conversation or maybe a quick recommendation made a big difference for someone. Could you share one of these stories that really stands out?
I was actually visiting a store earlier this year, and we had, one of these daughters. She was moving her mom with her because her mom could just simply not live on her own. So they had packed everything. They're ready to go. Their last stop was their local CVS pharmacy before they headed out of town. And so I talked to her about the flu shot, and she said, "Absolutely, I want to get the flu shot." And when I talked to her mom, she made a sign. She's like, "Hey, don't talk to her yet." And I was a little confused in terms of what's going on. So she pulled me aside and mentioned that she had some dementia going on, and she was already struggling with the move. We struck a conversation. We made it lighthearted, and she signed up for it too. So she got her flu vaccine there. She got her COVID shot there. Mom and daughter were able to head out. But a few weeks after, the daughter actually reached out and said, "Hey, thank you so much for doing that," because at that point, her mom was so worried about moving. And you think about packing up your entire life, not being able to be self-dependent, but now you show up at a pharmacy where someone slowed down, talked to you, showed empathy, and provided you services that protect you. And that made a big difference for her. To us, it was just an everyday interaction, but it was extraordinary for that individual at that particular time of their life.
That is so cool. It's not every day you get the follow up, weeks or months down the line to see how things went. Those stories are, they come around only every once in a while as a clinician. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. So before we go to break, whether we're talking about cold and flu season or just staying healthy in general, what's the one message that you want everyone listening to remember this season?
I would say we are still in the thick of the flu season. So go out there, talk to your pharmacist, talk to your healthcare provider. If you haven't got your flu shot, there's still time to get it. Protect yourself and protect your community.
Okay, so we're going to go take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Up next, we're putting some popular cold season remedies to the test. You do not want to miss this. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Beyond the Script. I'm Dr. Jake Goodman, and I'm here with Gurang Travetti. And today we've been talking about all the things cold and flu season. Now, on every episode, we're also going to dive into some of those wellness trends that you see all over your social media, or maybe those home remedies that your grandma swore by, in a little segment we like to call Myth or Medicine. All right, so here's how it works. I'm going to throw out 3 things people swear can help them from getting sick, and you tell me, is this myth or is this medicine? All right, so here we go. Question number 1. Every winter, people flock to vitamin C tablets like they're some sort of magic shields. From your perspective, does vitamin C actually prevent colds? Myth or medicine?
Myth.
Tell me more.
So Jake, that's a good one, and I love what you mentioned earlier on, right? Because I grew up with that. When we were younger and you had a sore throat, I remember my mom getting hot water and putting some salt in there, and you had to gargle it 15 times, and that was supposed to treat you and eliminate the virus or the bacteria that you had. And it's funny. It brings those memories back, and but as we think about vitamins, and it's a supplement, and I think a lot of us, based on what diet you're taking, if you're taking a full, well balanced diet, it's a different story. But from time to time, your doctor may tell you, hey, based on your diet, based on your blood work, you may need to get a supplement. So it's always good to have that, but it does not necessarily prevent the flu or a cold if you do take that.
All right, next one. I hear this all the time. If you bundle up hats and scarves and 5 layers, you can prevent catching a cold. Is that actually true, or is that a total wintertime myth, or is this medicine?
That is a wintertime myth. As much as we love bundling up and staying comfortable, that would not necessarily get you any sick. You may get stuffy just because you're out and about, but it's not because of the cold necessarily.
Okay, makes sense. I'll have to return my winter wardrobe that I just purchased, and thank you for that.
I wonder if it's an eagle scarf you got too, Jake.
We'll have this conversation outside the podcast.
Fair.
All right, so next question. Here's one thing that actually might have some truth to it, and you touched on this earlier. Washing your hands regularly, especially after being out in public, can really help cut down your chances of getting sick. True myth or medicine?
That is true. It's medicine. It does work, and let's kind of explore why that is important. We mentioned this is a virus, and usually it's contagious, and the way it's contagious is through contact. And the more times you wash your hands with warm water and soap, you're cleaning that out, and you're not touching your nose and eyes and ears, and so you're protecting yourself.
Perfect. Another big winter belief. If you sleep more, like really load up on rest, you can, quote unquote, sleep off a cold before it starts. Is that myth or medicine?
That's an interesting one, right? So I would put it more on the side of myth. But here's what I want to say, though. It's important to get enough rest to allow your immune system to function at its best, right? So when you're rested, we all know you wake up, you feel good, your immune system feels good, and in the event you interact or get some virus, your body is more equipped to fight it because you're rested, you're stronger.
All right, next one. This is a classic one. Drinking hot tea with honey and lemon can prevent you from getting sick. Is that actually protective, or is that just a comforting myth?
Myth. It is absolutely comforting, and I actually do that, and I love it. I love tea, and I love some honey in it, and it's extremely comforting at this time of the year.
But is it protective? Is it protective against cold and flu?
Not necessarily. Not,
okay.
The tea itself will not.
Got it. Let's get into the home remedy hall of fame. Using a humidifier in the bedroom, does adding moisture to the air actually help keep colds and flu at bay? Myth or medicine?
So that is a myth, but using humidifiers definitely help, and I do recommend this. And as a matter of fact, the last 2 days we have been using a humidifier in our house. And the whole thing that's happening right now, we've got a lot of dry air. You've got your heater on because it's 30 or 40 degrees outside. So when someone's already has a dry air passage, having the humidifier helps them soothe that a little bit more.
All right, well, that is it for this round of myth or medicine. Huge thank you, Gurang. This was awesome. Seriously, the insight, the clarity. This is the kind of stuff that people actually need to know heading into cold and flu season. And I really can't thank you enough for coming out. It's been awesome talking to you, so I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate the insights and the conversation we had today. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Gurang for joining us today and sharing his expertise. If you want to hear the full episode, be sure to check out Beyond the Script, available wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.